Hey, live on Pat's Soundbytes, keeping new music alive on the radio and video, and I do it all. And man, am I blessed and honored today. A big fan of this rock legend. I don't know, he's over this way, he's over here. Well, he's got a great new CD album out, a whole family affair. He's been with Elton John for over 50 something years. I mean, come on. How do you not love great rock legend guitarist, Mr. Davey Johnstone? How are you, Davey?
Thanks for having me on, man. It's lovely to see you.
Oh my goodness. Once I heard about this and I went out and purchased, oh my God, Deeper Than My Roots came out earlier in February. Well, earlier this month with a great video and single, Go Easy on My Heart. Davey's been a busy guy during COVID, I should say, utilizing the incredible talents of his magnificent children, Charlie, Jesse, Elliot, your daughter, Juliet. Oh my, I love the artwork. I love the collage of the pictures. I'm a lyric guy. And what I do is play new music, Davey. So right up my alley that I have thrown already, Go Easy on My Heart on our rotation. And we'll go over some of the other tracks that I fell in love with. But my goodness, it only took you about 49 years and you said, let's do it. Kids, gather around Dad in the studio and let's time to rock and roll.
Actually, it was pretty much like that. It started kind of casually because when COVID hit and I got back from Australia, when the farewell tour with Elton was kind of stopped for right in the middle of the whole thing, it was apparent I wasn't going anywhere for a while. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to start writing my own music and really enjoy doing that without thinking about Elton's music and my duties to him and to putting the band together and keeping everybody rehearsed and sharp. Now I realized, back then that I could just do nothing and set my own music and enjoy it. And yeah, my youngest, Elliot, he was 15 at the time. He's 17 now. But when the whole COVID thing was happening and when I started writing these songs, one day I just asked him, look, do you want to record something? You, me, and Charlie. Charlie can record us and up in his room with his mics and whatever. He can record me on a guitar and you singing. And he said, sure. So we did, the first track we did was actually the Beatles cover that I did, Here, There, and Everywhere. And it came out so beautifully. I suddenly thought, it did. This could be a cool thing to carry on doing. And, as I say, nobody was going anywhere. Nobody was touring. There was no performances. There was little or no recording going on. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do it in the house. And luckily, my kids are so talented. Charlie's a great engineer and an amazing piano player. So right there in the house, I had Charlie and Elliot.
Uh-oh.
We just started laying down tracks and it started to get really moving for me. And
I bet.
Quite an emotional thing working with your kids, And they're so talented. They always kind of keep me grounded, which is something I like. They love Elton's music. They love what I've done over the years, and they know Elton really well. And when Elton, actually, I sent him a copy of the record when it was first done, and he immediately called me back, and he said, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And he said, let me talk to Elliot. So I got Elliot on the FaceTime call. And Elton proceeded to tell him all the amazing things that he has if he wants a career in music. And this is what makes Elton so great. He's willing to pass on, experience and encouragement to new artists. And so, yeah, I'm very blessed with the whole thing, with the family and the fact that Elton likes it too. So he's mentioning stage every day. So it's great, man. I'm very blessed.
Oh, it's too bad we can't have the Davey Johnstone family band open up for Elton. I mean, double duty for you, Davey, but it would be pretty cool. Uncle Elton going, go ahead, guys. I'll play piano a little bit and just do it. That'd be cool. Any thoughts, Davey, to that after the whole farewell to Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour is over and you take a break, that you talk to your family and said, let's try to do some gigs here and there?
It's quite possible, Pat. I've thought about it, especially since we were actually to complete the album. And, Jesse playing drums on 6 or 7 of the tracks. And the only guests really on the album were were two other drummers, my dear brother Nigel from our band, Nigel Olsen, and then Denny Sywell from Wings. Denny's a dear friend. He played on a few tracks also. And everything else is really me playing almost everything on the album, and then my kids. So, yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, Julia just did an amazing job with the album cover.
Amazing job.
My
I
God.
love all the...
Yeah, and I was I explained to her at the beginning, I wanted something that was similar to what I like the album covers that I liked when I was a kid, like Sgt. Pepper and The Incredible String Band, and where album covers were really interesting and they had a lot of information on them. And she was well into doing it, so she did, and I think she just did an amazing job. And I'm her biggest fan, actually. I wear a lot. She's a designer too, and I wear most of her clothes when I'm on the road and all the rest of it. It's great.
Excellent. Yeah, it's this whole digital world, Davey, is okay. Everybody send me digital, and I got my hands-on guy. I miss opening the album, looking at the lyrics and reading who produced it, and I got to hold on to it, and that makes me feel better. And I encourage everybody to go out and buy it. You could go to Spotify and digitally download, but Davey can't autograph Spotify, I can tell you that. And you miss all of the beautiful collage and the butterflies and the artwork and pictures of Davey and I believe his mom and friends and Elton, obviously, and your parents. It's just beautiful. It's beautifully done. I really got a big Beatles grab to it. I mean, Go Easy on My Heart. I felt, boy, these could be Beatles songs. One Look in Your Eyes. Even if I'm saying it right, Davey, Me or More was like a ballad. It even had a little Band on the Run like lick in it. I picked up. I'm like,
you're good. You're good. Okay.
It had this little, I'm like, wait a minute, that's a little band on that little before that little takeoff with Paul and everything.
Right. No, I'm a big, as you can tell, I'm a massive Beatles fan, and I'm a big music fan in general. And for me, getting a chance to do a solo album, and as I said earlier, being free to do it without thinking about anything else has been really a gift. And also, again, of course, going back to my kids, I mean, they're just insanely talented. And it's why I wanted to, when it started to work this way, I thought, well, I'm not going to change it. This is going great. And there was only one song that I really felt that I should sing, which was the song Boxer in the Corner. And, it went so well, this whole thing. And I've decided that when the thing with Elton is done, I'm certainly going to make another record. And I'll be bringing the kids in when I can, and they're going to be 2 years older, obviously. But I'm going to be 2 years older too, and kind of at the end of my touring thing. This is why Elton and I, we were talking this morning. Elton and I were on the phone. We talk after every show, and we were talking about, my God, this has been amazing, and we were enjoying it so much, and we still have a year and a half of these farewell tour shows to do before we're actually done. And then after that, I'll probably do some smaller appearances, like, maybe in large clubs, that kind of thing, something a bit more intimate that I can enjoy, something a bit more for the fans and for the music lovers who can come and see me in a smaller environment instead of in a stadium and arena where you're kind of with binoculars trying to see everybody. And, I'm going to look forward to doing that in my later years, playing some of this music live to smaller audiences, and I think it's going to be a cool thing.
Oh my God, it's so intimate, and you could feel the energy, and everybody's right there. I'm blessed, Davey. I'm an hour north of the city, and in my backyard is Daryl's house. So I introduce a lot of bands, and everybody comes in, and you're right there, and you feel the vibe and the energy, and you and your family be a perfect fit for that. But we can talk about that later. Some of the songs, Davey, you wrote all these songs, the 10 tracks, and then there's 2 bonus. I mean, Melting Snow. I mean, I didn't know if I should. I'm like, wow, it's so heavy. Death. Sad to see you go, like the water, in the snow. Like I said, I'm a lyric guy. And now I know the listeners, it's up to everybody's interpretation of what I believe the song is about. Is that about like you're losing someone, Davey? Was that what your
It is.
thoughts?
It is. It actually is. And I, luckily the songs that I've been writing for this thing, for this album, came very fast, very naturally to me. It wasn't like I had to study over things, rack my brains out and stuff. Also, it's a great help from my fellow lyric writer, Rick Otto, who's a wonderful poet and actor who lives in California. And Rick, and I asked him if he wanted to help me write some lyrics for this album. So he was able to come up with stuff that maybe, so I wouldn't have to torture myself quite so much with a lot of the lyrics.
What rhymes with this? What rhymes with this? And then Rick.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. I'm very good at editing lyrics, but I wanted somebody to come up with some fresh ideas that perhaps I wouldn't think about. So I told him I was writing a song which was kind of about death. And I didn't want it to be super heavy, but I wanted to have something that was very moving about the subject of death. And when he wrote Melting Snow, I went, that's the title.
Wow.
Immediately gave me the idea. So Rick and I collaborated on most of these songs on the record. And I also stole a couple of lines from Robert Burns, the Scottish poet, who you probably know wrote Auld Lang Syne and these kind of things. Robert Burns wrote a wonderful song called A Fond Kiss. And he was he lived in the 17th century in Scotland. And so way back then, hundreds of years ago, and a wonderful writer. And one of his great songs that I always loved was called A Fond Kiss. And it's about parting. It's also about death. But the way he says it, it's very kind of ambiguous, but it's beautifully put. So I put the line A Fond Kiss in the song, just as a tribute to him.
I love the flow of the songs. I've listened to it probably 4 or 5 times when I got the CD. It flows really nice track after track. Elliot's got this, Mia Moore, he's got this little John Lennon sound a little bit that you pick up of like when John's singing fantasy, not fantasy, like starting over. I picked up, I'm like, wow, Elliot is like right there. But your guitar riffs, Davey, in Deeper and a few of the tracks, you have 2 instrumentals. Let me ask you, what makes a song an instrumental, Davey? Obviously, Walt Disney and Black Scotland you could have had lyrics, but when do you say, this is just going to be an instrumental? How do you make that decision?
That's interesting. You should ask that because what happened was these are the only 2 tracks that come from, a few years ago. My friend, my dear departed friend, Bob Birch, who was Elton's bass player for many, many years, and he passed away in 2012. Well, in 2012, I've got to say, in April, we were over at my house and my son Jesse was playing drums, and he set up his Pro Tools rig in my downstairs conservatory. And I was just writing some stuff, and it was starting to sound really good, what I was doing. And when Jesse started falling into playing, and then Bob, it was obvious that this was going to be an instrumental. It was like 3 guys really playing something musical that was challenging. So I didn't want to kind of make it, what's the word? I didn't want to be like, it felt exciting. And that's Black Scotland. And then the other one, Walt Disney, the same thing. But what happened was it started, when I heard it back, it started to sound very much like Pink Floyd and that kind of vibe. And I thought, you know what? I don't need to add lyrics. I should say I could have added lyrics to it,
right?
But it felt like they were done. And then what happened was when Bob died in, later on that year in 2012, I was so done in by the whole thing. I wanted to tributize Bob on this record by putting on these 2 tracks that we did with him, because they are, in fact, the last tracks that Bob ever played on. And he plays amazing bass on both of those songs. In fact, those 2 tracks are the only ones that somebody else played bass on. I played bass and guitar and all the other tracks. But Bob is a magnificent bass player, and we miss him to this day,
Well, God, it's great that you're keeping his spirit alive, and that is awesome, Davey. Writing the songs and knowing, how you would want to sing it. The singer, I'm not a musician, Davey, but the singer has to have the emotion behind the song. How much of a challenge was that for Elliot and for you to say, "This is what I was thinking, Elliot," like on "Go Easy on My Heart," and for him to, do you give him a love, like a flexibility to go add your touch because you really need to sell it because you're the singer? Am I correct with that in a way?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The thing with Elliot that's astounding is that he has inherited from his dad this very quick study about if you hear something, you can basically do it immediately. When somebody said, for example, when I wrote "Go Easy on My Heart," I knew kind of what I wanted, but I told him a little bit. I said, look, this is kind of, because he loves the Beatles as well. Because, any kid of mine, if you're in the car with me, you'll hear that's kind of what I play in the car. So he's heard all these great songs over the years, and he adores the Beatles too. So when I mentioned to him, look, I've got this track and it's sounding, I want it to be a little bit like that Beatles vibe. And I would sing the song to him once, literally one time. And then I'd go, okay, how do you want to do it? And he'd say, well, let's just do it now, So he would do one pass and I would say to him, okay, this is going to be great. Let's just change this a little bit and put a bit more inflection on this part and we'll be cool. Because I don't like to, I'm not the kind of producer or parent who likes to say, you got to do this and you got to do that.
Right.
No way. I've always believed that in music, you've got to let somebody fly. You've got to let them go and say, this is kind of what I'm looking at. This is what I like. Why don't you add your thing to it and let's see what we get. And that's actually the way that Elton and I have always worked over the years, since right from the very beginning. When I walked into the studio in London as a 20-year-old kid to play on Madman Across the Water, actually, I'd been brought in to play on that. People knew that I was kind of a hot shit, young acoustic guitar point. And, I'd never met him, but I went in the studio and they said, we want you to play the guitar thing. Play me your part, Elton. So he played the part on piano. And I said, what about this? And I played one thing and he said, that's it. So right from there, we've always worked very quickly. We've always worked very emotionally, as far as usually the first ideas are the best or close to the best. And they take very little, producing after that. And that's what's always kept Elton's music fresh over the decades, is that we're a musical situation. We don't beat the ideas to death. We don't do 50 takes or something in the studio. We maybe do 5 at the most, 4 or 5.
So important to have the chemistry, and obviously the 4 years were put together. There's no such thing as a coincidence of you, the wonderful Dee Murray, who we lost, and Nigel and Elton. You got to have the chemistry, even though today, Davey, I could send you a WAV file and you could play a lick. I think you miss out. I'm not a musician, but I would want to be with everybody to say, wait, try this, Davey, or Elton, try that. Because I think that's where the magic really comes from, to make it shine, right?
That's exactly right. And the great thing is, you mentioned about the 4 of us in those, especially in the first 10 years, all the stuff that we were doing in that period, which is ridiculous. The output was insane. It was like album, tour, 2-week vacation, album, tour, it was insane. But, that's why we got these amazing results, I think. And the great thing is, Elton being a wonderful piano player, and he doesn't play guitar, but he loves the guitar. So occasionally he would say to me, oh my God, can you play something like this? I'm hearing this kind of line on it. And sometimes I'll hear his idea and I'll go, really? But then I'll try it and it'll be like, oh, actually, that's pretty good. And then I'll just develop it a little bit and we'll have the thing. So I'm all in favor of people having ideas, but I've been very lucky in my career that most people have booked me in the studio to play on their record or whatever, because they want what I will bring to the track, not what I'm going to play that they've decided, I want you to play this, because I don't I don't usually do that. You know, even in movie work that I'm doing, if I'm doing stuff with Hans Zimmer or James Newton Howard for movies, they usually hire me to play what I'm going to play, you know, not what they've written. So it's good. I'm very blessed. Very lucky.
It's got to be really good for you to keep up your skill sets. I mean, Alice Cooper, John Lennon, Yvonne Elliman, I read, Stevie Nicks. So it's not just one genre. You hear what they're doing, and as a producer and as an artist, you go, I think I can fit this in. And it's just not, it's always, I guess I'm saying more of a, not a challenge, but it keeps your mind fresh, I would think. Let's try this guitar. Let's try that. That you would normally maybe not do, you know?
That's right. No, absolutely. And that's why I've always enjoyed those challenges. Like when it was obvious that we were going to be off for a year or so when Elton retired the first time, Alice called me and his manager, Shep Gordon, who they're both dear friends of mine.
Great people.
He said, well, look, doesn't look like Elton's going to do something for a while. Do you want to tour with Alex and maybe play on one of his albums? So we did that. And I just had the best time playing, doing that real hard rock stuff every night. And Alice is a dear friend to this day, and I love what he does. But yeah, you're right. It's a challenge to do that. And then again, for example, working with Stevie was a real gift, because I met Stevie actually with Lindsay outside a restaurant on Rodeo Drive in 1975.
Wow.
I was going into this restaurant, which is not there any longer, called Trader Vic's. It was a Polynesian restaurant. And a lot of kind of rock people used to go in there because they had all these fancy drinks that would smoke when they brought out dry ice in them, and you'd be surrounded by all this smoke. I don't know why we liked that, but we did. And I was going in there, and this couple came up to me, very cute couple. And they said, hi, I'm Stevie and this is Lindsay. We've just joined Fleetwood Mac. And I'm going, really? Because I've known Fleetwood Mac guys since they started, and I thought, really, that's great, And it wasn't till about a few months later when I heard what they had done, it was like, holy shit, this is a whole new rebirth of that. So when I played on Stevie's record, Belladonna, it was a huge album for her at the time, she loved the fact that I was bringing acoustic sounds, mandolin, 12-string guitar, lute, stuff like that, banjo, to her music, because she's very, very, that whole witchy thing and that fairy thing, they love that whole acoustic-y thing. It's kind of like the Incredible String Band, early Zeppelin acoustic stuff that a lot of people still love, and I'm a big fan of that too.
Absolutely. When Elton comes in with the idea for like Funeral for a Friend, you guys look at each other going, I don't know if anybody's really, and it goes into Love Lies Bleeding. Has anybody really, like, I think of like Bohemian Rhapsody, and you have to see the movie, those guys, Queen puts on this great song, and the manager's going, no, radio will never play it. It's too long and it's crazy. And Freddie pretty much says, bite me and we're doing it and have a nice day. Right. Take it out of my royalty, whatever, it's playing. When Elton comes in with Funeral for a Friend, and you guys are going, man, this is going and going, but thank God nobody ever changed that song.
Well, back then in the 70s, especially, that was 1973, we recorded that piece. And the whole idea was, in fact, okay, we want to start this record. Because see, back in those days, you were able to do that kind of music without worrying about commercialism, without saying, oh my God, if I don't have a hook for this song in 15 seconds, nobody's going to buy it. Right. That wasn't what you thought back then. Luckily, musicians had a chance to be real artists and to play what they wanted to play, and the public would gravitate to it if they loved it. And we were very fortunate. People loved what we were doing. But I really believe strongly if artists and musicians have enough faith in their own music, they won't get too swayed by commercialism. That's one aspect of music, and pop music is always going to be there, and that's fine. But I don't think it means that we all have to do the same thing. So I in the 70s, lots of bands were given that freedom because of the record companies. And like you mentioned about Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, actually we did Funeral for a Friend and all that before they did that, but right. It doesn't matter. The point is, when Elton was writing Love Lies Bleeding, and we were playing it. I came up with a couple of guitar lines in that song, and it was quite long. And then we suddenly thought, you know what, if we have an instrumental to preface this song, and then maybe something else at the beginning that's really cosmic, we could have like a 15-minute opening. And that's the way that song came together. And then one of our engineers, David Henschel, who's a wonderful musician also, he came up with the very beginning of Funeral for a Friend, the synthesizer intro part with the wind and the chimes and stuff like that. And so really we were just doing exactly what we wanted to do. And the longer, the better. If the track was 15 minutes long, great, we love it. You know, so in those days you could do that. And I think it's kind of sad that most bands don't do that. Don't try and stretch out a bit more. I mean, there's some great bands that still do it, like Radiohead and people who are making wonderful music. But for the most part, that kind of era has kind of gone, I think.
That was a great era. I used to have jet black hair, Davey. I remember it well. You're a phenomenal guitarist, Davey. How would you describe your tone?
I have very many different tones. I think that's the secret. I've really always I've always enjoyed the whole gamut of sounds, of tones, starting from gentle acoustic to rock and roll acoustic to country mandolin banjo acoustic to light guitar rock like we did on like Dixie Lily and stuff like that, crunchier stuff like we did on Saturday Night's Right for Fighting, which gets really heavy, which, you know, so I've been fortunate with, especially with Elton and Bernie's wonderful songs, and then later me being able to write some songs with them. I've been able to use all the tones that I might have ever wanted to use. And, you know, I've worked with so many great producers like Gus Dudgeon and Chris Thomas and Greg Penny and you know, T-Bone Burnett, all those guys who are willing to, okay, what do you got, Davey? What do you want to do this time? And I'll play my tone and go, great, let's do it, you know. So I've been fortunate that in my career, I've been able to use all the tones. You know, if people know my sound, they might recognize it more from Love Lies Bleeding or Saturday Night or Bitches Back. But to me, that's only one area of what I do. There's a wider spectrum.
Do you have a favorite, Davey, that you love to play? I mean, the catalog is like insane. You look forward to the set list and go, okay, yeah.
Well, we still enjoy playing Funeral because we play that on the farewell tour. We do it right in the middle of the show. And it's always great fun to play that. And we love playing Leave On, which is something we've taken to another level. It's like we change gear in the middle of the songs and it suddenly goes into higher gear and really rocks out. There's so many great songs that we enjoy playing, and Rocket Man's always fun to play because we get to jam a little bit on that. But yeah, we're very fortunate. We get to do what we want to do, and if something's going very well on stage, we usually think, okay, well, let's take it. If it's going to be another 30 seconds or a minute longer, a big deal. The public are enjoying it, so let's enjoy it ourselves, you know.
You work with tremendous. You mentioned Nigel. I love Ray Cooper. Watching him is just watching him is just, oh my goodness. The band is top notch. 3,000 shows. 2019? Did you get? Does Ellen say, okay, you got 3,000? You make the set list for the tour. You get the grand piano. What do you get for 3,000 shows, Davey?
Wow. Well, what you get is like 500 more.
And you know, wait, there's more, Davey.
No, it's bloody insane, but that's what it is, really. By the time I finish, it'll be 3,500, I think. That's all good. But no, I've been doing the set list with Elton for, I don't know, 25 years. We always sit together and we bang out what we think would be some good, interesting new things to do, or he'll have an idea or I have an idea, and we you know, we change it around until we come up with what we feel is a really good set list. And right now the farewell tour Setlist seems to be really going down well because, well, apart from anything, it's got some major hits on it, but it's also got some deeper cuts and darker moments.
Okay, don't tell me. Don't tell me.
Yeah, the public really enjoy that too. It's really it's a fun show.
I'm looking forward to coming down Sunday at Nassau Coliseum, and folks in the tri-state area tomorrow and what's tomorrow? Tuesday and Wednesday, Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and then Saturday and Sunday at Nassau Coliseum. I am so stoked to rock with Davey Johnstone and Elton John down at Nassau Coliseum. Any other projects that you're working on, Davey, that you can share?
Well, a couple of things that are in the, I've got to keep some things on the back burner for afterwards. So I started writing a book during COVID also. I would take a couple of hours every day and just sit down and write a couple of things just so that I can remember everything before I get senile and forget the whole damn thing. So I've started doing that. I'm also doing a documentary, which I started with Dee Murray's widow, Annette Murray, and we started putting together some old footage and photographs that have never been seen, and great stories and interviews with people like Paul Buckmaster and other great musicians who've been involved with Elton's career. The idea is to do a thing that's really about the Elton band and the music. It's not like a sensational drug and sex and whatever expose. It's nothing like that. This is purely about the people who helped make Elton who he is today, and were part of what we did for the past 50 years. And I think it's going to be a really fun project once we're finished with it.
No, I think the fans like myself would love to see stuff like that. Like I mentioned, the four of you and Nigel and Dee and Elton. I mean, it's funny, I'm looking at what songs did Davey co-write, and you were part of everything, but the only one I could find was, I guess they call it the blues, that they actually gave you. All right, well, let Davey have a little taste of this one. It's okay.
No, it's funny. I remember Elton saying to me, we're in Montserrat, over at George Martin's studio there, where we made a couple of albums, and I got in there early one day, and he said, look, I'm struggling with this lyric, and he said, but I think it should be basically on guitar. And I said, okay, what is it? And he showed me the lyric, and I'd actually seen it on the plane. Bernie had showed me the lyric, and it was one that I read, and I literally went, oh my God, that is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen that you've written. And anyway, I left everything alone, and when Elton suggested we write it on guitar, I thought, perfect, it's going to be great. So we did it in about 20 minutes, just him and I sitting in the studio, and we recorded it later that day. And that's kind of the way we tend to work. But then later on, we wrote a couple of other songs together that became quite important. One of the songs we wrote at Caribou was called Grow Some Funk of Your Own, that was a #1 single actually over here in 1975. And we used to open with that on our tours in those days. And I also wrote a couple of tracks off Rock of the Westies, and then I wrote 5 or 6 on Blue Moves. So there's always been a period where, I've written 3 or 4 here and 3 or 4 there. I guess over the years, I've written about maybe 20 with him. But one of my favorites was called Cage the Songbird. And that's a song we wrote again up in Caribou Ranch, just the two of us sitting there. And it's a beautiful little song. And it ended up being on the Blue Moves double album. And so, yeah, I've really enjoyed writing songs with him and Bernie when the situation arises. It's not something we ever go, oh, let's do a song together. We've never really worked like that anyway. It's whatever's right for the moment. That's what we tend to do.
Do you still get nervous going on stage? Do you
Sure.
get nervous that, here we go, oh boy,
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't get nervous, I think you're missing out on one of the best things about performing live. You're missing out on having that edge. If you say, well, I'm fine, that means you think you've got it all covered, and you don't. I don't care who you are, you get nervous because you go on there and it's your duty to, play your very best. And, obviously you want to impress your audience. You want them to hear what they came to hear also. So you've got a duty to people. And that's the way I always look at it, is that I've got a duty not only to myself and to my higher power in my life, but I've got a big duty to the audience that's in there that we all have an experience that's going to be really enjoyable for everybody.
Well, I am blessed to have this 20 minutes, 25 minutes with you, Davey. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. And I look forward to album number 2, Davey's CD album, Deeper Than My Roots, with his wonderful, incredible, talented children. Go check out the video. Go easy on my heart. Hit the subscribe button. Spirit of Unicorn Music. You can go digitize it and go to Spotify, but I encourage you to get it so you can see Juliet's beautiful work and all the pictures. Outstanding, brilliant, brilliant job. I really mean it, Davey. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I have. This has been great.
That was fantastic, Pat. I really enjoyed meeting you, talking to you, and looking forward to rocking your brains out when you come to Nassau Coliseum.
I want to get rocked, and it doesn't get any better than this. Keeping new music alive is what I do, and I know I'm going to be talking to Mr. Davey Johnstone in the next couple of years when he does another one and play that video and keep things alive. Davey, all the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Pat. I'll see you down the line, man. I'll look forward to talking to you again.